Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Yamhill Leadership Roundtable. It's either like 58 or 60, something like that. Coronavirus is still with us, but we also have with us Mayor Scott Hill of McMinnville. We've got Stephanie Finley, Councilor from the City of Newburgh. Welcome. We have Mayor Michael Cape of Amity. We have Gioia Goodrum from the McMinnville Chamber of Commerce. We have Senator Arnie Roblin from everywhere, 7 counties, everybody. We have Scott Cooper from McMinnville Economic Development Partnership. We have Keisha Wydro, Renee Wydro. You throw me for a loop every time. From the Sheridan Chamber of Commerce and the Revitalization Committee. We have Representative Ron Noble from House District 24, right? Yes. Okay, welcome everybody. It's great to have you with us. I'm going to get started with Senator Roblin. Senator Roblin, what would you like to tell the people of Yamhill County and the coast, especially about coronavirus, but everything else at the state?
Yeah, I wish our coronavirus was not going up, but it is. We had a little bit of a spike, and now it came down a little bit, but it is alarming. We were told that this could happen as we get into winter. That the virus seems to like it the same as the flu season, so we'll have to wait and see how we do with that. I hope that people will continue to follow the guidelines that CDC has put out there about wearing masks and keeping your distance and stuff, because I think keeping those numbers down is what's keeping kids in some schools around the state, because we do have some that are open, especially K-3. There are very few places in the state that could actually open a high school yet, but we have kids going back to school, even in the high school and middle school ages, if it has to do with a vocational course or special education. We're doing some things to make sure that we get that contact that is necessary for kids to learn best. So we'll hope we can keep that going. There's a bunch of new OSHA rules that are coming out, and on the radio show tonight, you're going to hear a little bit about how onerous some businesses see those things. Betsy Johnson and I are going to have a conversation with a number of business people about those new OSHA rules. They're temporary rules right now. They're going to be going into the rulemaking process over the next 18 months. So we need to make sure that people understand and have conversations. And it's been an interestingly long process, which resulted in, after the process was kind of over, OHA came in and layered some other stuff on it that I think surprised people. So it's I think, worth having the conversation about, so we'll be doing that later tonight. I'm also, as I have done all through this, my radio station deal, different people, Peter DeFazio will be on tonight because we just got another grant for our rail line down in Coos Bay with the federal government and some money from the state. So those are the kinds of things that are happening there. We had an e-board meeting last week, which was a bit contentious if people were watching. The first two issues took about an hour and a half. There was a lot of questions about spending some money on a program called Turnkey that the counties had been working on, which would allow counties through nonprofits and others to buy hotels that were having a hard time financially, but were in pretty good shape. To buy them and then use them as short-term housing for homeless or for workforce, however they wanted to work that out. And the state would put up some grant money through the Oregon Community Foundation, which has been working on it for a long time. So they had it broken into two parts, $35 million for the statewide, $30 million for just the 7 fire-affected counties. After a long conversation, 2 Democrats, the 2 co-speakers, or co-chairs of the Ways and Means process, Betsy Johnson and Steiner Hayward, voted no. It died. We voted on the next one. 2 Republicans in the Senate changed their votes and voted yes, and so it passed. So we will be having $30 million being spent in those 7 counties that have been identified as impacted by fires, with the opportunity to buy hotels and build it into housing for the future. I was in favor of both of the issues. So I'm looking forward to it. From the counties that were engaged in my district who really wanted to do this, Lincoln and Lane, both of them are in that fire-affected group, so they're going to get to move forward. So we'll see how that goes. There was some other money for short-term housing for people with fire issues and the coronavirus, and trying to make sure we had short-term housing for them. And so it was interesting. There was the first report back that we accepted on how all this money is being spent and all these different amounts of money that are coming in. So if you want to have an evening read to help you go to sleep, there's a big document online. I can't remember how many pages, but it's pretty extensive and lots of numbers sharing how all that is going. I think everybody is anticipating that we will have another e-board meeting for sure to take up that issue that failed this last time, because it was asked to have that conversation again. I anticipate there will be another special session after the election to take up other issues that are going on. Right now, the big conversations going on are what kind of a session, what's it going to look like? We don't seem to have coronavirus under control. We don't expect to have widespread use of vaccines when we get started in February. So there are conversations about whether we should put it off for a little longer, have it later. We have a total number of days we can do, but it doesn't have to start or end at the time that it does right now. So there's lots of conversations which people like Ron Noble are going to have to get engaged in, and I will not, because my date, which is January 13th, when they sign in the new people and I go away, is in the Constitution. So that one I get to, that will be my end date regardless of all the conversations that Representative Gomberg and Representative Noble are going to choose to have with regard to how to go about having a session in a pandemic and solve all the problems of the state, from flooding to fires to. It's been a pretty amazing 2020, and I will say that they have worked really hard, along with counties like Yamhill, to keep me busy in my last interim part of my career. So I appreciate all that, and if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Are there questions or comments for Senator Roblin? Thank you for getting us started on that e-board conversation, because I'm a new fan of Twitter, and so I started seeing all the journalists going, whoa! So with that, we have Representative Gomberg and Representative Noble on this, and I'm wondering whether you might be willing to take a few minutes to add to the conversation about Project Turnkey and kind of what are some of the challenges that you see with it and the budget, and kind of why there was so much passion for it?
I'll start by just saying the passion all came because there isn't a county in the state that doesn't have a homeless problem. We all know that. Winter is coming, as they say in a great movie, TV show that I love. And so with winter coming, finding places to shelter people is really, really hard. Getting resources from counties to put people up in hotels and stuff is not a long-term solution, but having facilities like a hotel where you could put people up that is ADA accessible and so on. I think that from the standpoint of the people who were not in favor, it was really an issue of spending. At the time, we know we're going into a difficult session. Spending $65 million is big, and it would have cut the emergency fund down to about $50 million if all of it was spent. That makes people nervous, even though most interims, that's all we put in the emergency board is $50 million. So, but that being said, it was a shock to the $200 million that we put aside in the last session for the e-board. Having most of it gone before we get to the new session makes people a little nervous. And so that being responsible for the state's money is one of the issues. I think other people didn't have a clear idea, because we don't get these agendas until a day before, so it's really hard to follow through with it, even though this one had been brought up the e-board before, so people did have a chance to look at it, and a number of people did. The counties have spent a lot of time on this. The Community Foundation has spent a lot of time, and the gal who spoke for the Community Foundation, I thought was exceptionally well prepared and answered questions exceptionally well, though there are unanswered questions because that's the way it is. They haven't bought a hotel yet. We haven't figured out how to go about figuring out which hotels to buy and how to go about doing it. All of those things are to be figured out as time goes on. The Community Foundation is a can-do, will-do organization, and I have a lot of faith in them. And I thought the answers, one of the questions that I asked, which I had gotten an answer beforehand, so I knew what they were going to say, was that if a county gets engaged with an NGO and they buy one of these hotels and they go out a year or so and they can't make it work because they don't have the resources to keep it going, then they have a responsibility to sell the stuff and give the money back to the state. So that's part of the contracts they'll be doing. So at the end of the day, you've either got to get someone who can sustain this thing, or the money comes back to the state to do with it as they wish. So I was appreciative of that they'd actually thought through that kind of stuff. And I think the contracts and how they're going to go about doing it is going to be stuff to figure out later. Now that we have $30 million to work with, they'll get a lot of that stuff worked out over the next few weeks. But part of the problem was everybody knows we need to do it now because it's cold and people are living on the street. And so every week you wait is a week that those people have the problems of being homeless. And so that was why it came up, and that's why the emergency board. And truly, if this is not an emergency, I don't know what is. So I mean, that's why I think it came, and that's why they had the conversations. So that's the start. I'll let Dave and Ron say anything they want to say about it too.
Representative. It looks like Representative Gomberg's first.
Well, thank you. I'll jump in because I am on the e-board, as you know, and I apologize. I missed part of Senator Worldland's coverage, and I'm going to have to leave in a couple of minutes. Although I will say I'm going to be in Sheridan tomorrow afternoon and look forward to seeing some folks there. You know, going into this e-board, I've got to say I think that there was a slowly but consistently growing frustration that we are dealing with big dollars and big issues with very little time and very little input. I mean, it was 2 meetings ago, we had 67 items on the agenda, and we got 3 days notice of what those items and the specifics were. And here we were on Friday with a $60 million proposal, soon to be followed by another $100 million for the Forest Department and Department of Transportation on wildfire issues. And we're going to be voting on all this stuff and making decisions, as I've said before, in less time than it takes me to cut my grass. So we go into this meeting and start asking questions. 2 hours of questions. I mean, I was asking questions like, the Community Foundation is going to get $60 million. Do they get any kind of management fee for administering that program? And oh, by the way, the answer to that is no. I had a question. We've got one proposal for 5 specific counties that had wildfires, and another proposal that's going to help counties out with homeless shelters if they are not wildfire impacted. I said, I represent half of Tillamook County. They declared a fire emergency, but they're not on the list of fire counties. Are they eligible for this program? Those are some of the kind of questions I had. When there was a motion to table the whole proposal, take a little more time to think about it, possibly hold it over for a special session, I thought that was probably a worthwhile approach. And frankly, I feared that if we didn't take that extra time, the motion would fail. As it turns out, one of the motions failed, one of them did not. And so we're going to be moving forward, and hopefully we're going to come back and talk about this issue of whether we've got the opportunity to deal with homeless shelters in addition to wildfire refugees. And I say that, I use that phrase respectfully. So it was a very tense and terse meeting. You know, the other thing that it was at the very end of the agenda was one that had special significance for me. And the question was, how much of the $1.6 billion that the federal government sent us is left? How much have we not allocated? And of the money we have allocated, how much of it has not been spent? Because we only have until the end of the year to spend those dollars, or we lose them. And I want to make sure we take full advantage of the resources that are being sent our direction. And without going into all the different pockets of where the money is sitting right now, between the couch cushions and old pocketbooks, We now understand that we probably have about $150 million that is left, and here it is a week from November. So I hope we find the wherewithal to use those dollars in appropriate ways before the clock runs out on us. So, Ron, everything's been said, but it hasn't been said by everyone yet. I just wonder how this looks from watching the e-board from the outside.
You know, that's an interesting comment, because the e-board happens so fast. I become, as anybody who's not on the e-board, a spectator like anybody else. Really don't get a chance to see the agenda until we're in the middle of watching the meeting or reviewing what happened. I guess I just want to make this statement. Yamhill County and this region of the state is well served by both Senator Roblin and Representative Domberg on the e-board. Senator, you're going to be missed. And I appreciate their comments with regard to just how ready the project turnkey was ready to go. I can tell you that I was disappointed that it was split up and that we didn't get all $65 million passed. But I have my own questions that deal with tourism. And if we take hotels which aren't being utilized right now, and we convert them to shelters, which are greatly needed. We've been dealing with homeless issues in our state for quite a while, and it's about time we did something real to take care of that problem. But my question is, what do we do when the economy starts picking back up and we need those rooms for economic development and for tourism? And so I think that's not a reason to not do it, but that's a reason to take a look at a long-term plan as to how are we going to deal with any economic recovery from COVID or wildfire. So I very much appreciate the statements that were made here. Like I said, I wish we had passed that homeless issues and providing refuge for people who are either stuck for one reason or another, both wildfire or COVID, or generally just homeless issues that we dealt with. This was an opportunity to step up and actually take some real action. So hopefully we'll get that chance again. I know that I heard that it looks like we'll have an e-board session soon. I know we'll have probably a special session, and then we have a long session whenever that may be. So anyway, thank you both for your work on the e-board.
Great, thank you for those three different perspectives on this issue that really affects all of us, but that the e-board took up. Are there questions from other folks or comments about the emergency board last week and the project turnkey? Kelly Mankey? Okay, maybe not. How about Councillor Finley? I ask them if they have any thoughts, because the Yamhill Community Action Partnership, the City of Newburgh, the City of McMinnville, and the county have all chipped in, worked together, renting the top floor of one of the motels in McMinnville, and then a part of a motel in Newburgh. And that process is costly, but it's been very effective. And so I'm just curious if either of you had thoughts from your respective cities.
I think it's a brilliant idea, and I'm thrilled that you're going to do it. I understand what Ron is saying in regard to, what will happen on the economic recovery. But if they really are having a hard time making it, I'm sure we can figure out some other uses too. I mean, it could become maybe a mixed use type of building too in the future. But it's desperately needed.
If I can jump back in, an important part of this conversation that relates to Kelly's point is the measure says if they ever stop being used as shelters, that the property will be sold and the proceeds go back to the state. I think that's very interesting that they're looking down the road saying this is possibly not a permanent solution. On the other hand, they're going to take these motel rooms and hotel rooms and convert them over for residential use, which presumably means putting in ovens and making them look more like apartments and less like motel rooms. So there's some transition going on there. Excuse me for interrupting, but I thought that was a salient point.
Yeah, it is a salient point. You did mention that earlier. missed that. And I'm just wondering if maybe they need to kind of reconsider and think about these being for mixed use in the future. I realize the state's going to want their money back. I get that, but I don't think homelessness is going to go away.
So my question to follow up on that is for the three legislators here is, did the e-board and did the project turnkey proponents mention anything about using any of the remaining coronavirus relief funds for the purchase, or is that possible?
You know, I asked that question. I said, we got $100 million in the pot, and we're dealing with people that have been affected by COVID. Why can't we spend federal dollars instead of general fund dollars? And I can't recall the details of the answer except to say, no, we can't do that.
Okay, thank you. No comment then as a follow-up.
I'm off for another meeting. I apologize, but I'm going to leave you in good hands with the senator and the representative.
Thank you. Okay, that sounds good. Well, thank you for that. Are there any follow-up comments from other people on the call? All right, thank you. And thanks both Senator Roblin and Representative Noble for following this and participating in it. I really appreciate it. I'm going to move on now to, Senator, not Senator, very confusing, to Mayor Scott Hill of McMinnville to update his community on both on coronavirus and other things.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thanks for those that have been giving reports today. I just wanted to update everyone. Met with the Lori out at the hospital. Again, they're up and doing well. They have capacity. So very little corona-related incidences there, and even patients there. It's a minute number, and I know that they're able to do testing more readily now with faster results. The one thing Lori says is remember to get your flu shot, because we're going to be right in the middle of that, and from their perspective, that is critical to do. I think I'll leave for Scott Cooper to talk a little bit about our economic business recovery program. I'll let him talk about that. This evening in our city council, we're going to be, the one thing that we're going to have a little bit of discussion is the extension of our contract with our facility and personal services recreation master plan and feasibility study. We have gone and put a good 6 to 8 months into what is called MacPac, and tonight we're going to take that contract and extend that out, looking at some options maybe with location and the build out in future months. And so that's going to be what we're talking about. There's been quite a little discussion on this call about homelessness, and we've had quite a little discussion in the community about the Yamhill Gospel Rescue Mission. And this last week, we had an opportunity to have Dave Hogelberg and Kay Sawyer, along with Heather from the planning group and Jeff Towery and Stewart, talking a little bit about the occupancy of the Gospel Rescue Mission. And they've come up with and I just want to let people know that what's working between the Yamhill Gospel Rescue Mission and the city is they're communicating, they're enjoying their conversation. We've got a few problems when it comes to that building occupancy, but we've extended that. We've been very helpful, and everybody's on the right page. I'll tell you the one piece that we were able to negotiate, that we will have 35 emergency weather beds available, and that happened this week. And so that's happening along with the hotel stay program between McMinnville and Newburgh. I think we're building our capacity a bit during these weather, this inclement weather time. A couple of things are going to be happening this week. Some of us are involved. everyone can be involved if they want to, but on Thursday, we're going to have the second meeting of the West Side Road and the truck route from 47, and that will be at 2 o'clock for anyone that wants to be a part of that. There will be a panel of the mayors, and I think Casey will be on that panel giving some insights, talking about our communities in the county and the effect that would have. And then I won't say it's long awaited, but we're excited that in McMinnville this Thursday, we're going to have DEI training for this council and some of the staff. The staff's been through that. The police department is going to have specialized training. So we're going to make good on that DEI training that's so critical to start the process with us. We're in the midst of creating our diversity, equity, inclusion, and leadership committee, which will be it will not be a task force, it will be a committee, and we're going through looking for individuals with diverse backgrounds so that we would have everybody represented on that committee. So those are just some of the things that are happening this week in McMinnville. And then the last thing that Casey mentioned is, we're getting close to November 3rd. We are a state that is vote by mail, and so I would just suggest to each of us that we get out and vote. We saw in the News Register that we have over doubled the mail-in votes early compared to years gone by. Typically, and I think this was 2 weeks ago, we typically would have had about 10,000 ballots in, and we were well over 20,000. So again, it's showing that people are engaged, but remember to get out and vote and have your voice be heard. So that's it from McMinnville.
Great, thank you, Mayor. Are there any questions for Mayor Hill? All right, then there are some follow-ups that other people can do for City of McMinnville stuff, but I wanted to, I apologize and then return to Representative Noble because I gave him the opportunity to comment on the e-board, but he has a lot of other things that are going on. So I return to Representative Noble. Thank you for your patience.
Oh, no problem at all. And you know what? This is the part that almost sounds like a broken record. I guess I'm thankful, and I'm not superstitious, I'm thankful that since our wildfires, we haven't had anything else. We're still dealing with COVID issues, we're dealing with health issues, we're dealing with economic issues based on our response, still dealing with wildfire issues. But, if you're superstitious, knock on wood, since I'm bringing it up right now, most of what we're doing out of my office still, as crazy as it sounds, deal with unemployment issues and still advocating for unemployment this far into it. The e-board came up. We're working diligently, and Commissioner, I appreciate you being on the Sandium Canyon Economic Recovery team with us. Apologize for missing last week, but one of my other duties was being a member of the Healthcare Committee. I was speaking at the State of Reform Healthcare Conference last week, so I missed our last meeting. And so business keeps going on. There's a lot of, I guess I'll just say this, we're all aware, especially in light of recent events in our communities here, that not only COVID itself, but the economic issues and some of the restrictions that we need to go through because of the pandemic is creating, I guess, to say that it's creating extra anxiety and depression and stress is probably an understatement. And that's not just for us adults and parents, that's for children as well. And I think we need to be extra sensitive in knowing that we need to do what we can to minimize the impact of COVID and bring that curve down. And at the same time, people have been isolated for quite a while. We're doing this. It would be nice if we all were around a table and it was just a broadcast to all of our constituents, but that's not the way it is. And so different people deal with stress differently. And I'm saying that just because I think as we're talking about recovery, we're not just talking about economic recovery and dollars. We're talking about family structures. We're talking about emotional health. And then, of course, addiction recovery and child welfare and everything that goes with that. So I know I've mentioned this before. I like to keep it in the forefront because otherwise we get lost in the numbers. And I know that each one of us here recognize that we're serving people. So I guess I would just end with that. And I'm welcome to take any questions, or I'm willing to take any questions that you may have regarding the legislative issues coming up, if there are any additional.
Thank you, Representative Noble. Gioia, I believe, has a question, but I wasn't sure I got my thank you in.
I think you got frozen there, Commissioner, but yes, thank you. Representative Noble, thank you. It's really good to see you. I keep getting questions from my businesses about why they have to close, like the restaurants and the bars. Why do they have to close at 10 o'clock? I just got a text from another organization saying this is crazy, you know, events are limited to 100 people. I understand why we're doing this, but it is taking a huge toll on people and on businesses. And is there a rationale for why businesses have to close at 10 o'clock? Is there a rationale for why it can only be 100 people or less? I know that there's guidance on this, but the businesses are asking me, so I'm coming to you. Thank you.
You know, that's your question is the same question we get often, and I'd like to think that I'm a fairly linear thinker, and sometimes that gets me in trouble because it's easy to point out the inconsistencies as we're looking at what difference does it matter as to why we're meeting and how late we're meeting. I think I don't have to make those decisions right now. There are some people that are much smarter than I and that have all of the information. It's easy for me to sit where I am a week away from election day and try to second guess what's going on. But the reality is I don't have all that information. And I've been in that position before as police chief where I had more information and you just had to deal with some of the criticism. That being said, there are some reasonable questions out there. Legislators right now are kind of relegated to being advocates and raising the question with the governor's office and asking those difficult questions and then encouraging changes. But like I said, we don't have all that information. You know, it's interesting you bring up that because depending on what you call the group, we're trying to figure out whether or not we have an election night party or gathering. And if you call it an event and you have it not in a restaurant, it falls under one set of rules. But if you have it in a restaurant, it falls under a different set of rules. So, you know, I guess I say that to acknowledge the frustration that it's not just our business owners, it's everybody else. We're patrons, and it's us that serve the public as well. I wish I had a better answer, but I think we need to make a concerted effort to try and take whatever personal precautions we can, from masks, social distancing. This is the time of year when you're talking about holidays and getting together and intermingling with people. And we've had close to 9 months of isolation almost, many people have. So it is coming to a head, and I think it's incumbent upon a lot of us to try and encourage people and be the voice of reason if we can. Again, I don't have all the information, so I don't have all the reasons for the decisions.
Yeah, and Senator Roblin turned on his video, so I'm going to check. Do you have thoughts on that?
I think Ron did a great job, and I think he's right. We don't have all the information. I know that they looked very hard around the world when it came to coming up with some of these suggestions with regard to the 10 o'clock closing time. People tend to drink more and stop using their social distancing and other skills later as time goes on in a bar. That was one of the conditions that they looked at. I don't know why the final meeting was 10 o'clock, but that's, I know, was part of the conversation. And the 100, I think that was in large part because I think the medical people said we should keep them under 25. And there was and people said, no, we can't do that. We've got places that are really can spread out easily with 100, in churches in particular. So we've got to relax that a little bit. I don't know that if you talk to the health people if they would really think 100 was a good number. But the reality is, what are we finding? We're finding that most of the spread now is coming in smaller groups. It's family units that are getting together that don't realize they have it. So, the 100 is, at least you can put yourself between 10 or 11 people who don't have it, and then you'd be okay. And on the other side, they might be sick. This is such a weird disease. And when you recognize that even at the places where they tried the most to protect people, they've had outbreaks at the White House, both in president and vice president with big events. There's a lot of research going on that those really mega events are causing in the numbers afterwards. I don't know, and I agree with Ron that the issue is they took all the information they got from around the world with regard to how people were dealing with this disease and tried to come up with the best answer they could. And I have to agree. This is the executive branch has to make decisions, and they get more information than we do. And at the end of the day, you either trust that they're doing it for the public good or you don't. And that's I particularly appreciate Ron's understanding as a police chief, because I know that those people in those positions have these kind of tough decisions to make all the time, and they can't share the information they have with us. So I really appreciate what Ron had to say. So thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for the question, Jay. Well, please, yes. I was going to ask you if there's anything more anyway.
Yeah, I mean, what we're talking about, science and facts, and one, not all the facts are known, but we also get into a situation where the interpretation of facts is really what we're talking about. And it's not whether or not the science is sound, it's our interpretation. And then that's just like anything else. You wear your own lens, you draw your own conclusions, and that's why we have so many different thoughts and opinions about how to deal with COVID. And quite honestly, many things in our society.
I was going to add that, yeah. This coronavirus is not the only thing that we have different interpretations of the same facts. But mine are right. Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other thoughts or questions for Representative Noble? All right, I'm going to head on to Councillor Finley from the City of Newburgh. What would you like to tell people in Newburgh? And you might get some questions from folks here too. And welcome.
Thank you. So this might be really brief, but I just found out that I was pinch hitting this meeting about an hour ago. So, so things are plugging along. The show must go on. And so there are some things that we're doing differently and being a little more creative at the City of Newburgh. Some really exciting things are actually happening. We welcomed some new faces and some new positions in the last couple of weeks. We welcomed Assistant City Manager Kezia Warner. So it's going to look a little different in terms of the structure at City Hall. We also added to our planning department with Jared Bradbury and Russ Thomas, who has been with our Public Works Department for, I think, over 30 years. Got the Public Works Director position. So we are excited to have all of those super knowledgeable, super experienced people in those positions. Talking about some of that CARES money and the time that's running out, we at the council meeting last time, we approved some of that CARES money to go to Project Oasis, which is going to be a program that's partnering with DCI, one of our bigger employers, and the Spencer Family Foundation for some childcare and distance learning positions for both their employees, but also for some children in our community, because that's something that we're really lacking right now. Something that we know parents, teachers, kids all need some good childcare options and some good distance learning options. So we're excited about that program and hoping to see a good increase in some of those places for kids to go during the day while parents have to work still. Some of the other things that we're doing, we just sent some emergency water pods being set up in 5 different locations around our city. Something that we knew before, but has hammered home this year is that anything can happen at any time. And so the more prepared, the better. So we're going to continue to do some of that emergency preparedness stuff that we really think is important, because who knows what's next. And then the last thing I want to talk about is something that's really exciting for me as someone who has young children, but also someone who has been a patron of the library for my entire life, is that Newburgh is the first library in Yamhill County to have a visually impaired section. We're getting some new computers coming in, and we're just doing really fantastic things with some pickups and drop-offs and just doing things really different. The cozy book reading program over the winter, we're making sure that we're getting out to families and to people in the community so that they're still getting the services that they need from the library in just a different and more creative way. So things are moving along.
Great. Thank you very much, Councillor. Are there questions or comments for Councillor Finley? Thank you for joining us. You did it. All right, I'm going to go on to Mayor Michael Cape of Amity. What would you like to tell people today about the city of Amity, coronavirus, and Salem-Keizer School District?
Yeah, there's a lot there that you just covered. First, to Mayor Hill's comment, I'll say I did submit my ballot, put it in the drop box today, so I have voted. My voice will be heard once they count it, right? Interesting election we got in Amity this year with a lot of write-in candidates, so go vote. I will echo Mayor Hill's message when it comes to that. So this last Saturday we had our we usually do a pumpkin decorating contest or day. You know, kids come into our community center, we give them a pumpkin and they decorate it. We say decorating, not carving, because we don't give kids knives. Figure that's not a good thing to do. So this year we did kind of a drive-through style we used the First Federal Bank's parking lot, and I got a hold of some friends of mine that donated some pumpkins, and we put together a little goodie bag to give to the kids and some stickers so they go home and decorate their pumpkins, and hopefully we'll be getting some pictures that we'll be able to put up of what kids have done on our Facebook page. So hopefully that's kind of a little bit of a feel-good type of a part of it. I think that's really necessary right now to have some feel-good stuff in Amity. Kind of to what Representative Noble's point was, there's a lot of hurt right now in Amity. I'm not sure how many people are aware, but there was a young student that took her life last week. So there's a lot of pain with our constituents, and it's a hard time for a lot of people. So really, I was happy to be able to do something and maybe to bring a little bit of light to some people. We definitely need to make sure we work on addressing all of those needs. I especially liked what Representative Noble said about, it's not just the economic recovery, right? It's everything. The family needs to recover, the emotionally people need to recover, and some of that's going to be long-term and ongoing, anyhow, there's that. So I hope I have a lot of sympathy and condolences for the family as they're going through that. When I was teaching at Sheridan, there was a young man in a similar situation, and I was a big part of that recovery of him, and so suicide is an issue that's near and dear to me, and I have a lot of sympathies and feelings for those people. So you did, Casey, ask about the schools and Salem-Keizer schools. So the simple one-word answer is crazy. It is crazy right now. We have 62 different bus locations for grab-and-go meals that we distribute. I think by the end of this week, we're probably going to have reached 150,000 meals distributed since September 6th. The numbers are going up each week, and I think we're even going to start giving away meals also for kids to get through the weekend. And they're looking at also, and currently they provide a lunch and a breakfast. Lunch for today, breakfast for tomorrow, and we're also looking at possibly expanding that to include a supper. So it could be 3 meals in one bag to go, and then on Fridays, extra meals to get through the weekends as well. So that work is just big and keeps us very busy. The other part of that too is we also have LIPI, or limited in-person instruction. And we have, I think it was 2 or 3 pilot schools that started that, bringing in small groups of kids for their instruction into their buildings. As those schools have worked through, those pilot schools worked through that and kind of worked out their kinks and whatnot, we're expanding that to more schools. And today I was with our director and we went and toured a couple of the schools, and each one of them said, we're putting in for, 60 kids, hopefully starting next week. So I think we are going to have a huge number of requests for that limited in-person instruction. I want to make sure people understand when we say limited in-person instruction, that's like groups of 10. And they can be in the building for up to 2 hours at a time. So it's not like they're there all day. They're very short windows of time, and the schools have to select the students, and they have to be able to justify why that student was selected for that in-person instruction. And it could be for a variety of reasons, whether they need certain assessments or testing that can only be done in person, or maybe that student has no internet access at home, so they can't get their education online. There could be a variety of reasons, but it has to be extremely specific reasons, and the school has to justify that. And so, but those numbers for us are exploding. We have over 60 schools in our district, and each one of them, if they put in for like 30 to 60 kids each, that you can imagine the numbers of that's going to be. So there is some rumblings, as Senator Roblin mentioned, of some updated guidance from the Department of Ed. I've been told that could be coming soon. So does that mean tomorrow or 3 months from today? Who knows? But soon. And a little bit of what I've heard is I think there's going to be some intriguing things there for people to look at to see what schools are going to be allowed to do moving forward, and what those metrics are going to look like to allow schools to do that. So, but anyhow, I think that's all I've got, unless anybody has any questions for me.
Questions for Mayor Cape? All right, thank you. And I suspect that at least some of that will be a change in the statewide positivity rate. I'm just guessing, as opposed to the new cases per 100,000. Senator Roblins was nodding his head a little bit, so.
I've been told I don't know anything. So my boss says I don't know anything. So
I've talked to them about a bunch of those things, including that, but also about looking at it from a regional perspective. People are not traveling as much. And so if a region has a case rate that's down, maybe that region could do some things differently than others. But I know they're looking at a lot of different things. So, yeah. Yes, absolutely. All right, thank you, Mayor. All right, we have. I wanted to make sure we get to our business leaders here. And to Keisha, what would you like to tell people? Well, okay, then I have one question for you, which is, how are things going at Delphian?
Fantastic. They're going great. The kids are super happy, and now it's just a real big challenge of how you keep all the kids entertained without leaving the hill for but they're very, very happy. We at our last staff meeting, the teachers were crying because they were just so happy to be able to be with the kids, and the kids are, it's great. It's fantastic.
Good. Okay. Thank you. Thanks for taking a question at least. All right. I will move on to Gioia Goodrum from the McMinnville Chamber. What would you like to tell people today?
Helps if I'm unmuted. Okay, so you mentioned the community grants. I was going to talk further about them. There is money for community events, programs and services expansion, capacity building, business recovery, adaptation and transition, and for not-for-profit, so 501c6s, so chambers of commerce are included. Thank you, county, for including us. And so there's great opportunities for businesses financially. These grants are available at www.covid-19-COVID-19-grant. And then there's some other grants available as well. So there's the Yamhill County one. Willamette Workforce Partners has one that is open now. The deadline is November 15th. The deadline for the Yamhill County one is, it opens tomorrow, and that deadline is the 13th of November. This one here, Business Oregon, 3rd and 4th round, applications are open now, and you can find information at https://willwp.org/ this is hard to say. If you have any questions, send me an email at president@mcminnville.org. I'm happy to send you the information, but that's open until November 15th, and that could be anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 for a small business. So these are great opportunities out there for our businesses to help them through this time period. And that's all I have to share. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Gioia. Do you have questions for Gioia? And to follow up on the community grants that the county is doing, it can be for COVID-related expenses or projects, but it also can be for non-COVID related expenses or projects. And we're just taking money from two different accounts. And one is the coronavirus relief dollars that the state is holding for us. And then another is money that we dedicated to it that we do every year. So thank you. And Takesha, remember to apply.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, then I'm going to move on to Scott Cooper from McMinnville Economic Development Partnership. What would you like to tell people today?
Thank you, Commissioner, and also this is the first thing that we've seen that's been available for C6s out there. So really appreciative. All of us are appreciative of that. So I'm really happy to see that too. I don't know if this was covered. I wasn't here the last couple of weeks, and the Mayor Hill had mentioned about the McMinnville Emergency Business Assistance Grant Program, which was round 3 of the Business Oregon funding. We had 22 projects that were able to give out $57,000 to small businesses in McMinnville. And we've really focused on moving those who were ineligible for round 3, maybe eligible for round 4, or who could also obtain additional dollars because of the changes in round 4, to get a hold of them and to reach out to make sure they make those applications for round 4. As well as the county grant response and recovery grant program. More opportunities. I've had a lot of calls this week from retail, restaurant to healthcare businesses and everything in between, looking for information on those. And so it's really good to be able to point them in a direction instead of simply saying, I don't know and we don't have anything. But there are a few things out there, at least now that they're eligible for. As Representative Noble mentioned earlier, business keeps going on, and I guess that is also a good thing. We've got a few announcements that we've made. Erin Hansen Gallery, she's a renowned impressionist, will be relocating her headquarters from San Diego to McMinnville, 20,000 square feet out in the industrial park. They'll be kind of their multi-use facility. They'll have a studio, retail, and manufacturing space all in there under one roof. Well, it's 2 buildings, but you know what I mean. Unique Wire is a digital forensics company that is expanding in McMinnville, taking up about 10,000 square feet in downtown, 10 jobs or so, very good jobs. Colvin Court out of the industrial park, we had an expansion, or an extension of that, I should say, about almost 500 feet. And what that does is it opens up additional industrial park properties that can be accessed. And it was also the kind of the kicker for Castile Bottling's new 20,000 square foot bottling facility, which will retain about 14 jobs. So it's been a busy October in that sense, and we're really happy about that. Castile, and this is how the domino effects kind of work. Castile moving out from where they were to build a new facility opens up space for their landlord, which is Precision Analytical, to utilize that space as they grow and expand. So it's nice to be able to see that domino effect kind of work. Also, I'm sure a lot of you have heard that a major employer here in McMinnville, TTR, they do research consulting and sales tax automation tools for businesses. They've sold to a company out of Seattle called Avalara. And what this gets for Avalara is 1,400 customers representing more than 30% of Fortune 500 that TTR represents. So a pretty substantial purchase. TTR will keep their name. They will operate as a subsidiary. No effect on employment here in town. They will remain in McMinnville. So yeah, that's pretty much what's happening is at least in the manufacturing and trade sector community in McMinnville. Also, just want to remind everybody, we dropped our ballots off as well. Vote, 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 vote. Legally, but vote as much as we legally possibly can. Tell everybody that you can and you know to vote. Thanks.
Well, you got some big news.
I haven't been here for a couple of weeks.
I know. That's super exciting. When you described, when you used the words about TTR, I know what they do, but I immediately thought, that sounds like Avalara.
That's why.
There you go. Well, that's super exciting for us, and congratulations to TTR. I mean, it's a new journey. So, and I'm so glad that we still have them around, even if they're not downtown. Yeah. All right. Are there any other questions or comments for Scott? Great. Thank you very much, Scott. I wanted to, Mayor Hill has unmuted himself.
No, I was just saying how the one thing that happened while Scott Cooper, they had their opportunity to have their non-existent annual awards banquet that typically is brought together, and we had to take it out to, I think it was the 5 entities that won awards this year. And so again, just to reiterate what Scott was saying is that, businesses, even during COVID, there's some great successes that are happening from that perspective. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Seems like that was 6 months ago, Mayor. I apologize for forgetting that.
That's right. At Yamhill County, we also have some other things happening besides the community grants. We are, I believe, this week going to approve a community broadband expansion grant program. So there are going to be some larger grants that are going to go out to specific companies. If we approve them, there will at least be one that'll go out to Online Northwest for broadband expansion. And it's specifically directed at improving access for school children and for people who are working at home. And then there'll be a telemedicine component. So they're going to be tracking how many people now have access to telemedicine. Or that sounds like a 1990s word, having a medical visit via video conference is another way to put that. And then we also have some childcare expansion and access grants that'll be coming forward as well, specifically to at least, my hope, and I forget that this is recorded, so my hope is that there's at least one project in the city of McMinnville where there's additional childcare slots. So listen for that. I'll be sure to get you more information when the time comes. In really positive COVID-related news that's not business-related, our new case count went from 63 new cases per week per 100,000 to 45 new cases per week per 100,000. So a 30% decrease. Very positive, which is especially impressive given that on Thursday we had 24 new cases. And this is what we see when we have COVID testing clinics, where groups like Virginia Garcia open up and say, we need as many people as possible to come in and test. We were able to improve our testing and tracking capabilities through that. We were able to find more connections to known cases, and we dropped our positivity rate as a county as a result. So that to me was a lesson in why we shouldn't fear more testing, as it will likely show more cases, because we can use that knowledge that we gain to actually track down cases and isolate and slow down the spread of the virus. It was exciting to me to learn that. Yes. So with that, I also voted, and I got my notification that my signature matched. So stay well out there, everybody. And remember to turn your ballots in. And it's too late to mail it in Oregon to guarantee it before November 3rd. So put it in a ballot drop box, and we have 15 in Yamhill County, unlike the one in Harris County, Texas. All right, I'll see everybody next week, and thank you so much. Remember, these people are working for you out there every day.